All right, everyone, the red light is on and we are recording. This is Mark back for another episode of the Veteran Semi-Professional. So today is an interview episode where I'm interviewing a veteran about their life and career after the military, on effort to help you if you're trying to figure out what do I do once I can put my hands back in my pockets, grow my hair out, and start wearing these things called civilian clothes. This is the show for you. Show you what are the career options that are out there, provide you with tools, tactics, and frameworks on effort to help you have a successful transition from the military, okay? I'm super pumped for today's guest. So Matt and I connected a couple months ago and had a really, really great phone call with him. He's one, an awesome dude, and then two, is doing some really great things to help our community. So just super pumped to get this conversation with him. So Matt, if you could take a minute and just introduce yourself to everyone on the show, I'd appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Mark, for having me, and I'm more than happy to share what we're doing here at the University of Health and Performance and the foundation. And first of all, I heard about your show from one of the students that went through our program, a young Ranger who has been impacted greatly by your podcast. So I always love when our students bring forward resources back to me, and then I started listening to it and I thought it was amazing. And so he said, listen, I'd love to reach out to Mark and tell him about my experience. And so that's how we got here, first of all. So thank you for having me on. My background after leaving the service was really focused in I think where I started my life, which is a focus on using physicality to help grow myself mentally and emotionally. And I've used that my entire life as an athlete, in the military, and then when I transitioned into the business world through college and that normal career track. And I guess the sort of punchline of my life now is that I'm very passionate about helping folks, specifically transitioning service members, find and live their purpose using a holistic approach, which we'll get into, which is part of the curriculum we teach at the university. So long story short, we are creating coaches, and I'm really passionate about the ability to help people who want to serve others use the coaching platform to do that.
I'll also say I've been seeing you post more on LinkedIn about veterans and veteran affairs and everything, and you're putting out some awesome stuff, man. Like I love the message you got going on, and we're definitely going to dig into that over the course of the show. Awesome, so first, what did you do in the military? What did you do?
So I enlisted at 17 as a split op. I enlisted with an artillery battalion in Wyoming. My intention was to have a long active duty career. Halfway through my service, my mom got in a really horrific car accident and had no caregiver. So I transitioned from thinking I was going to have a long career in the Army to utilizing my GI Bill, going to school and staying in the National Guard. And so I, during that time, reclassed into an 11 Bravo and was in the infantry. I had a phenomenal experience on the anytime in the active duty side. I really loved the leadership, and I had some great leaders throughout my time in the military. National Guard is a little more challenging in some ways. I think I was more built for the active duty world, probably. But part of what I'm doing now, which we'll talk about, is finding ways to bring forward resources and solutions to help the civilian soldier force maybe fill in some of those gaps that I felt while serving. So I'm a big bang guy and an infantry guy at the same time.
Right on, cool. So one, are you still in the Guard? Is that still going on?
Nope. I'm spending a lot of time around it, but I'm not in it.
Right. Okay. So just kind of curious, with that transition from active duty, it came unexpectedly, was not, what you were necessarily looking to do. But kind of looking back in that time, and then also, we'll tack on there, you're exiting from the National Guard. What was the good, bad, and ugly of the experience that you might want to point out to other people?
I think transition in anything that you do is challenging. I think for transition from the military is especially challenging because for me, 17 years old, I was basically being formed as a young man, and indoctrination that you get in the military, the structure and the values that you get delivered to you, and you really, unless you're a complete knothead, you can't really screw it up because the system is designed to not let you screw it up. When you get into the civilian world, the rules are different. The landscape is completely changed. And for me, I don't think I spent long enough in the indoctrination to really feel the challenge of transition. I was so young, and young kids are resilient. And so my limited time in active duty, I think is very limited time, is indicative of how challenging or not challenging it was for me to transition. That being said, I do think that the need for a focus in the areas that I've always focused on would have helped me anyway. So I've seen people thrive on transition, and I've seen people really struggle. And I think that the struggle is really related to losing purpose, and the ability to serve people on a greater scale, bigger than yourself. I think our whole population of veteran, active duty, and citizen soldiers are all just built to serve other people and a bigger calling. And when that's gone, man, I think that's just the transition is so important, because if you can navigate the waters through finding purpose, you won't find yourself in the transition funnel of the downward spiral that so many veterans do. And I think that's I know that's the work you're focused on. How do we make people thrive through a successful transition plan? And that's what we're doing. That's my whole focus is all about that. So I didn't really have a hard transition, because I went right to college, used my GI Bill, and my mom was so messed up that I was basically, I had one foot in school and one foot in rehab with her, and trying to balance, being a citizen soldier. And so, what happens when you spread yourself too thin.
Yeah. And, I'll what I'm kind of hearing in your story of, like, something I think everyone kind of struggles with, of, why I have the uniform on, I got that flag on my shoulder, my mission, my purpose, my identity is kind of very well defined. And yes, like, I think I tend to think that, like, all people are intended to want to serve others in some way. I truly believe that, like, veterans, for whatever reason, like, you joined, could be for college benefits, could be to just travel the world, could be because you wanted to, shoot guns out of a helicopter, but some level of that, I have to believe, was you wanted to serve other people in some way. And so you acted on that, many people at a young age. And, like, what I'm hearing in your story is, like, when you exited out, like, you did have someone to serve. You had your mom you to take care of. And that's a big, meaningful thing. And that's an important person to, put that energy into.
You trying to be my psychologist, Mark?
As much as I can through a Zoom room. Yeah.
It's a really good point. And I've done a ton of work on myself, and I've never thought about that. I've never thought about, man, what an epiphany. All right. Well, you're really good at what you do.
Okay. Well, hopefully I didn't derail the whole conversation here. We can dig back into this later, Matt. All right.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I know, like, you went to college, you're helping your mom out and everything. What was, like, the first kind of career move for you post Army?
Yeah, I'll give you the whole landscape real quick so that we can break it down. So yeah. I got out. I had a broken neck wrestling, and in late in my career in high school, and I thought it was going to derail my ability to go to the military. I rehabbed pretty quickly, and was still able to go. So I had used a really intense amount of physical fitness to get myself prepared. When I went to basic training, I loved it. It was amazing. I have such great memories of that. And everyone's like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "I loved it." But because of that neck injury, because of the intensity of training, I was taking tons of supplements, and I got really into nutrition. And so when I went to college, I decided to get a job at a nutrition store, and at a GNC store. And I became infatuated with helping other people heal, with helping, not just sports nutrition, but I was helping women go through menopause. I'm reading books, and, I was not a great student. But when I had a purpose to learn something, a reason to learn, I would spend hours. Some young lady going through menopause comes in crying on my shoulder. I'm like, I'm going to help her. And I'd spend a whole night, instead of doing my homework, I'd spend a whole night, like, reading about all these ingredients to try to help with, so I just became really interested in it, back to helping people and serving people. So I every hour I was working in this nutrition store, and I kind of built like this little business model of what do people want when they come into a store. They probably have a sort of quick fix idea. I want to lose weight. I want to stop my hormones from flashing. I want all these things. And I was like, okay, that's one aspect, but like if you get into their lives and you dig into who they are, you can help them a lot more. And so that's really what made me unique, my approach unique in working in that nutrition store. So if you walked into a store I was working in, I was asking about your kids, about your job, about your dog, about your childhood. I was asking all these questions, and then I would get to, okay, what are your goals, and how do I build you a program so you can live it? And so that beginning of my career, and I think that the first career that you have can really shape who you are. And back to the military, if your first career as a young man or woman is young people is to be an infantryman, then there are certain things you're going to learn that you're going to take into every career you have for the rest of your life, because it's like you're setting your operating system in a way. So I was I think building my operating system to serve others through health and fitness during this time, and I was writing basal metabolic rate diets for all the athletes at school and selling them protein and creatine and vitamins, and but doing it based on what outcome they wanted from their life, not necessarily just like, I want to lose weight, I want to gain muscle. And that set up a long career, which ultimately turned into, I ended up owning about 15 different GNC stores over my career, my first career. And then I sold all of those and started a sports nutrition company, which I grew for about 8 years and then sold to a fund in 2017. And so, and along the way opened some gyms, and, but always have used physical, mental, and mental health interlinked together, to grow mental strength, use physical fitness to push you to a place where it forces mental growth. And I think that there's a really interesting link between those worlds, and we're seeing it now. There's a lot of issues in a lot of places, and it seems to be the solve is a holistic approach to a better life through physical, mental, and emotional calibration.
Yeah, such a great overview, Matt, really. I want to go back to something you were talking about, being in school, and you're like, I really like the schoolwork, but then I'm like digging into like these crazy plans and like doing all the research by myself to provide advice, resources to, my clients that are coming into the store. And I want to highlight that story for everyone listening, because I'm sure either like you yourself, like as you were going through school, maybe like, I don't really like school, this isn't really what I want to learn, or you probably have guys and gals in your platoon, your formation somewhere who probably also the same thing, right? I know, like I remember plenty of my soldiers in the 82nd were, they would admittedly say like, I was not a great student. I didn't like learning math. I didn't want to do geometry, but like they could sit there and read manuals on like how a Humvee works. And I'm like, that just makes my eyes glaze over, but like, this is clearly something like you were passionate about, of understanding like how the mechanics work and how these things move and everything. And the story there, I think, is figuring out what it is you like to learn, and figuring out like how it is that you like to learn, and leaning into that, and not letting, the narrative of everyone around you saying you have to go get this degree, certification, whatever it is, dominate how you're going to spend your time, like your personal education priorities.
Yeah, you're really hitting on something I think is we're at a really pivotal time, not just in the service member transition space, but in our country in general. And that I think our education system is so big and so powerful, not just from, I think intellectuals, academics who have built their whole lives on lots of education think that's the only way for people to thrive in life, is to acquire classical education. And we need to transform that. We need to start thinking more about what you just said, like what are people passionate about? Now let's build careers tracks so that they can live their passion and their purpose every day. And millennials have, I think, taken a big hit as a generation of maybe being lazy and entitled and not wanting to do anything unless they really liked it. And I used to be a part of that whole like, get off your butt and work, because I came from a generation of, my dad was a pretty hard, really hard worker, up at dawn and to bed after dark. And I think his father even more so. Kids now don't want to work unless there's purpose and meaning behind their work. And it's really interesting because I think it's actually where we all need to go to feel happier and healthier in our lives, and to be it is not work if you love it. It's, I pour myself into what I do now because I love it so much. And I want every single service member who's transitioning to have that same love for what they do, because if you love what you do, you'll thrive in every aspect of your life because you've got balance. And so education is the pathway to getting there, and it's alternative education. And there's a very scary stat that I can relate to, because I use some of my GI Bill, but not all of it. And that stat is that 72% of enlisted veterans don't use their GI Bill benefits. Yeah. And to me, that is just like crazy. But I absolutely at the same time totally believe it. And so what that tells me is that the VA needs to pay attention to its customer and say, okay, if they're not using it, why? And if the answer is because traditional education was never a pathway that they wanted to go down in the first place, because of what you just said, if you're passionate, if I'm passionate about something, I'll spend all day reading about it because I love it. I'm like, oh yeah, I need that knowledge so I can go do it. So that's what I know we're going to talk about our university here in a second, but what that question and that fundamental thought about what education means in this country is exactly why I formed this university for veterans.
Every time someone mentions GI Bill, I just gotta do like my quick spiel for everyone. My grandfather was an enlisted guy. He went to school in the GI Bill. My dad was an enlisted guy. He went to school in the GI Bill. I was an officer, went to school in the GI Bill. All right, proud third generation GI Bill grad here. All right, it is an amazing resource that you can use for graduate school, undergrad school. Go be a pilot, learn to be a chef, go be a mountain guide. There are a gazillion different ways you can use your GI Bill. And there's absolutely no reason to use it because it is a fantastic resource. It's just a fantastic resource for you and your family.
Yep. Yeah. So taking that, all of those different types of GI Bill use, if you look at especially enlisted population, back to how you're indoctrinated and how you learn, how do we learn in the military? We train and implement the training. We train and deploy, and they're short spurts of education. There's schools, little schools that you go to for a week to a couple months. I think that is if that's how you're taught to learn, and back to your Humvee manual thing, if you're passionate about learning the subject, and you're not an academic and learning for the sake of learning, and you're trying to learn a trade, then I think trade schools should be even more supercharged to what exactly do you want to do? Oh, you want to be a personal trainer? Well, you need exactly this many hours of curriculum. And for the transitioning soldier, service member, you can get that in, if it's 250 hours of education, you can get it going training for 12 hours a day, or you can get it and do it in a month, or you can get it training for, going to school for 3 hours a day and do it in a year and a half. What we've done is essentially built curriculum that allows service members to learn really fast and then go deploy it, come back and get more training, deploy it, come back and get more training, deploy it in all kinds of different spaces of health and wellness.
Okay, well, this is definitely a natural segue into University of Health Performance now.
Yeah.
So, you had 15 GNC stores, you built this company, you grew it, you sold it. So at this point you were like, okay, I can kind of maybe like take the foot off the gas pedal here a little bit. And now I got to think about like what it is that I want to do next. So like, how did this idea generate? And then like, how did you start acting on it at the beginning?
Yeah. So in 2017, maybe more like 2016, early 2016, I had a few employees that had served. I had an employee who had not, but they all had some of the similar kind of challenges. One had been a civilian, but became hooked on drugs and alcohol early in his adolescence, and was a really successful influencer, completely sober trainer. And I was I was mentoring a couple of young transitioning service members into the company while I was also mentoring this guy. And I asked him one day, what's been your secret to staying sober? Because his story was basically drugs, alcohol, homeless by 15, living on the streets. And he said, someone one day who I didn't know found me laying under a bridge and said, get up. And he essentially like made him go for a run with him. And I don't know the whole story of how he coerced someone who's hooked on drugs to go for a run, but he said basically he made him run until he became hooked on the endorphin of exercise. And he said from that moment, I used physical fitness and the endorphins I gained as the drug, and I replaced all of the unhealthy habits with healthy ones. And now I spend my life as a trainer teaching other people how to become hooked on fitness, because it's such a healthy way to live your life. In a non dependent perspective,
Right.
now he's healthy and sober for the right reasons, and it's not swapped one addiction for the other. But at the same time, I'm mentoring these young service members who are transitioning, and they're working for me. And I've been mentoring a lot of these guys over the years. I was very affected by the veteran suicide epidemic. I just, it really, I don't talk about this as it relates to our work very much, because I don't want anybody listening to this podcast or any other soundbite that veterans are broken. There's enough of that crap going around the internet, going around fundraisers, nonprofits.
Yeah.
Everybody's raising money off of the broken veteran narrative, and it's just not true, and it's not right. And as a proud veteran who is very happy and healthy and thriving, I take offense to the fact that everybody is messaging that I'm broken. So, I decided early on to kind of stay away from that space. But for the sake of our conversation, I'll give you context. Transition is challenging in any aspect. The longer you stay in the military, the harder that transition can be. So when you're going through a challenging time and you happen to be a veteran, broken veteran because they served, they're all broken from combat. And so, my initial thinking from having served, having been around other veterans was, wow, I didn't deploy to Afghanistan, Iraq. Maybe it really is that bad that they're all coming back and killing themselves. And so I became one of the people who were like donating money to foundations. And then I was like, well, I want to try to do something to help this population. When I got into it, when I started doing research to understand it, what I figured out was that my instincts were right, that they're not broken from combat. They're not, all messed up because of the war. That adds pressure. But the underlying issue is that they've lost purpose in their life. They've lost their physicality and their fitness, and they've lost their community and their structure. And then down the line, which is where we're treating all these people, they become addicted to opiates. They become addicted to alcohol. They're using substances to make themselves feel numb because they've never dealt with any of this up here. And so I decided that I was going to do some clinical study work and some pilots on replacing purpose with careers that allow people to feel like they can thrive in their lives, give them a vehicle, and then what is the fabric around it that holds it all together to make it feel community based. And so, long story short, I decided that what I was going to do was take. In 2017, I took a platoon sized element to a Boy Scout camp in the middle of nowhere. And we lived for a month, and it was nasty. We slept in like little 5-foot beds. We trained, a lot of hours. And the thesis was, if I can teach them how to be personal trainers, leveraging from what I learned from this guy, that healthiness and a healthy approach to life is a way to serve yourself and others. Then together we can put them into a vehicle that into an industry that is all about using physical fitness to grow mental and emotional health, which links back to my childhood and my career, early career. And so that was the concept. That was the idea. I ran about 10 pilots of 30 or so transitioning veterans, and the outcome of that. I took all the data, exit interviews, and in 2019, I decided to write a book. And the book, which is not published yet, but is written, is called The Purpose Blueprint. And the Purpose Blueprint became curriculum for the expansion of the solution. And so at the beginning of the show, as I said, we create coaches. The reality is we take empathetic leaders who want to serve other people. We give them the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the platform, the relationships, the network, and the certification. And then we put them into service in their communities as health and fitness leaders, who are healthy to serve themselves and healthy to serve others and help others find their purpose.
What a fantastic overview. Every bit of it, of just like how deliberate you were through the whole process, how intentional in figuring out like exactly like what the programming needed to look like, and then also like capturing the data to then put that into a book, and then I'm sure that kind of then fed into how you develop the curriculum for University Health Performance and everything. Just a very deliberate, intentional pathway to trying to solve a problem, and then capturing the effects on the back end. There's like a blueprint for the Purpose Blueprint based on the blueprint you use. It's crazy, man. It's wonderful.
You want to know a secret, Mark?
Please.
I'm not a religious man at all. I'm a spiritual guy, and then I believe that there's just some things we can't put our fingers on. A lot of that was guided by something, not me. Meaning, my life is a petri dish for this, to be honest. Like, I was the kid who came from a really challenging childhood background and had trauma my whole life. And because of that trauma, have used physical fitness to get me through it. And so in some ways, the recipe came from my own trauma. But all of those things that I laid out are exactly how they happened. But I didn't have the wherewithal to know what I was doing while I was doing it. Meaning, I wasn't prescriptive and like, okay, I'm going to do this and then this and then this and then this. I was simply moved to try to solve a challenge that I was really passionate about, because it gutted me to see other people like me suffering. And I wanted to try to find a solution for it. So I wish I could say that I was, that strategic about it. But I think there's just some things that, you get gifts in life, and this has been an absolute blessing to me to be able to do this, because I am so passionate about doing this work.
Okay, awesome. So you ran, it was like what, 10 pilot programs, you said, gathered the data, kind of put together this plan and everything. When did exactly like University Health Performance pop in? And then I realize sometimes I forget to ask people this because like we've had the conversation beforehand. Can you just give a quick overview of exactly what it is and provides to people?
Yeah, sure. So I built a 500-acre campus in Arkansas, and I'm essentially think about taking a university, a vocational university, a military base, and a world-class retreat, and smashing them together on 500 acres, 200 bald eagles, and Trout River, and Spartan race course. That's what the university's footprint is. The curriculum that is within the university is all health and wellness based curriculum. So you want to become a personal trainer, you want to become a nutritionist, you want to become a yoga fitness teacher, you want to become a health coach, you want to become a group fitness instructor, you want to work 24-hour fitness as a manager, you want to open your own gym, anybody that's passionate about health and fitness and wants to use it as a catalyst for their careers, whether that's as a coach or a business owner, or even inside of a company as a health and wellness coach. So, coaching across all of the verticals of health and fitness is a massive, massive, very fast growing business. Everybody is trying to be healthier. And so there are no schools that are focused on this. There are personal training schools, there are yoga schools, but there's no school that focused on helping veterans build their transition plan. So identify their purpose, and then get certified as a coach. And so that's what happens when you come to the school. You build essentially for 6 weeks, you pre-study with your platoon, which is about an hour a week. You're just basically learning what you're going to be doing and doing a little bit of pre-work. In my book, I write something called the origin story, which is who you are and where you came from. And getting back to sort of data, how do you identify why you are the way you are? And also, how do you capture the things that have made you happy in your life? And then when you lay them on a horizontal line, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, that made me, all these things made me sad or were trauma. And then these things all made me happy. Correlating the data of those things. And basically what you see in that is, here's where you're repeating your trauma, and here are the things that make you the happiest. Up here on this line is really all about purpose and passion and love and fulfillment. And on this line is basically you just continue to do this, hurting yourself until you something snaps and your consciousness goes, oh, I shouldn't do that anymore because that's what's making me so sad. And it seems simple, but it's really complicated, because as human beings, when we have trauma in our life, it's subconsciously compressed and compartmentalized, because we can't really process it because it's so debilitating, especially as children.
Yeah.
And so what we do on campus is help you identify those key points in your life through that origin story process. And then simultaneously, the purpose blueprint is think, train, feel, and lead. Think are your intellectual knowledge, your assets of knowledge. Train is your physical body. Feel are your emotions and awarenesses. And lead is your value system. Before you leave our campus, which you'll live on for 3 weeks with your platoon, you will have defined who you are, what knowledge you have, what goals you have in acquiring knowledge based on your purpose and passion, what physical fitness level you are, where you want to be, so goals there. Emotions, knowing who you are and why you are the way you are, will allow you to grow consciousness. And so you can find set goals and try to become more conscious and aware of who you are. And then value system, which seems like, we all have values, but if we don't define them, when we get out and we're going through transition, it's really easy to fall into something that doesn't align with your values. And someone offers you a job, this is an extreme one, but let's say you came from the hood in Chicago and someone offers you a job in the hood in Chicago selling drugs. And you're like, man, I got to pay for I got to get my kids food. I haven't had a job since I got out of the military. I really got to get my kids food. I know it's not right, but if you have a value system that you've defined and said, listen, this is non-negotiable, no matter what, I will never compromise this. It keeps you focused and on achieving what you actually want. And so you'll define that as well. So I'm going to give you a really quick day in the life on camp. 5:30 a.m. PT. You're working out with your platoon. It might be a run through the forest. It might be a squat session. It might be like a CrossFit workout. It might be yoga. But there's a theme sort of the day where you're talking about, today's, in the 21 days you're there, every day is themed out. And so 5:30 a.m. PT, you're at chow by 7:38. You're in the classroom studying either theoretical or practical knowledge by 9:30. And you do that until noon, and then you swap onto the training floor, and you're actually practically training on these different things. In the afternoon, you might be sitting down by the river writing in your journal. At 2:00, you might be sitting in a circle on top of this big hill with your whole platoon, doing ACT work, which is acceptance and commitment training. So, all integrated. And then at night, you go to chow in the around 6. And chow is like really, really nice food. It's like chef prepared level nutrition sound, programmed to the course food. And then at night you go into space. And space is this big carved circular, looks like a crater in the ground with a huge fire in the middle and seats all the way around it. And one night, every vet who goes through the program gets up, not required, but encouraged, and most do, and tells their story. And the idea is to be vulnerable for the first time in their life. Or if they have been vulnerable, tell us something that you've never told anyone. And usually it's what happens is a 30-minute story back to origin story. It's them telling their origin story. Yeah. And it's a extremely powerful experience. Anybody that comes through our program says, I became a coach there. It was best thing in my life, but the best thing that ever happened to me was being vulnerable in that space. Some people write a letter, read the letter out loud, and then burn it in the fire. Some people have things they've carried with them, you know, a bayonet, a pocket knife, whatever, that they say, I don't need this anymore. I don't need to kill anymore. I don't need whatever, throw it in the fire. So there's a symbolic thing about that, about space. And then the last thing they can do is open gym from, I think it's 7 to 9. And usually most, even though they've been up for 16 hours a day training, they're in there, the music's cranked, their shirts are off, they're all working out. It's a lifting party basically. And that happens for 21 days straight.
That sounds awesome.
It's
That sounds
pretty
just
awesome.
yeah. There's something deeply magical about like being around a fire, first of all, with people.
Yeah.
I know I've made a habit since getting out of one of my very good friends in the Army. We get together probably every 4 to 6 months, do a short backpacking trip, and just like hang around a fire and just like talk about life for a while. And it's super powerful. We always have a good time, something I always look forward to. And it's been awesome. And something else that I want to bring up, and I'm sure, I can't remember if you and I talked about this before or not, or I'm sure it's kind of come across in some of these origin stories, you know, and it kind of go back to that image of the broken veteran, right? Lots of people want to look at us and say, okay, you know, someone did 3 tours in Iraq. Everything they're feeling is related to that combat trauma. And, you know, I've spoken with a number of psychologists, therapists, you know, people who work in mental health. And the story I hear oftentimes, time and again, is like, yes, that, you know, that IED that hits you in Helmand province, that's probably not like helping you out necessarily. But as we start digging through that trauma and what you're going through, very often, like the real trauma that's affecting you is something that happened way, way earlier, years before the military. You don't even know necessarily that it happened.
Yeah.
And very often, like that is like the core problem. And even more so, like it could be that the fact that you live with that and carried that and everything, maybe that was what helped you get through that firefight somewhere. I mean, that's what helped you get through the trauma that you experienced in combat. But the root cause is, you know, your dad not loving you when you were 3 or whatever it was. Right.
All right, Mark, you went there, so I'll go there. Yeah, that is the dirty little secret. We have a population of people who come from trauma backgrounds, and their trauma makes them want to serve others. I think the one of the most beautiful things about human beings is a dog. Take a dog, for example. As a puppy, if you beat the crap out of a puppy, it'll grow up to be an aggressive dog that will bite you. But most human beings, if you beat the crap out of them, if you traumatize them, if you sexually assault them, if you physically assault them, if your daddy doesn't love you, they just grow up, most of them, wanting love so much that they turn around and give it to everybody, almost like it's unfiltered and in a codependent way, maybe. Like I need to serve you so I feel okay about myself.
Yeah.
What you just hit on there is one of the things we work on a lot on the campus. I've heard 400 origin stories now. What you said is 1,000% true, that these stories, everybody has trauma in their lives, and those who've been traumatized the most often deal with their trauma by helping other people. And so, you know, the military is largely built of people who just want to serve others because it makes them feel good to help other people because they're suffering inside. And so, you know, my goal is to help all of them heal that suffering through this work in the Purpose Blueprint, and then give them the ability to continue to serve, because no matter what you do, they just want to. That back to like how you're trained is how you live. They were built that way. Just because you heal yourself inside doesn't mean you don't want to stop helping people. Now you're hooked and you're serving from a healthy place where you're filling your own cup up, and others, versus pouring your own cup out over and over and over and wondering why you keep getting taken advantage of. And so, because when you give in an unbalanced way, people will take advantage of you. And so if you're healthy and you're able to give from a healthy place, there's unspoken boundaries that are there that people know are there, and they won't try to take advantage of you. They'll just appreciate you taking care of them. I think there's a subconscious stuff going back and forth both ways. I don't think it's always intentional that someone's going to take advantage of you. It's just something, it's like mirroring. If you're messed up and you can't see it in yourself, you bring other people like that into your life, and you're like, man, And you look at that person and eventually you go, oh my God, that's me. And then you change it because you don't like how that looks. But sometimes it's hard to see the stuff in yourself that you don't want to see because your body is protecting you from seeing it. Subconscious compartmentalization, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't usually talk about that either, but you dig into some good stuff, and it's an important, the more awareness we have about it, the more we can work on it and become happier and healthier.
Right. I would love to hear if you have a good one to share, some type of success story, protecting personal identity, all that kind of stuff. But if someone who maybe came through the program, who came in and left just like a different person.
I've got a couple. One, a young man who was in our very first pilot class. He was a Marine who got injured in Iraq, came to us from a rehab facility, straight out of rehab. Basically what happened, he got injured in Iraq. He was hooked on opiates. When he was on leave, he didn't have any, so he used drugs. Went back to the formation, got drug tested. They chaptered him out because he used hard drugs. That pushed him down now he was an injured Marine who had no benefits because they gave him a dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
So now he's because of his service broken, now has no benefits, becomes homeless, hooked on drugs, finds himself in a rehab facility. Finally, we, through some relationship with somebody, found him. He comes to our program, sober, becomes a coach, personal trainer, moves to, I think, Texas, Austin, maybe, I can't remember, somewhere in Dallas, I think it is, goes to school so he's a personal trainer at night, goes to school during the day, not on his GI Bill, because he didn't have it because they took it from him, student loans. After finishing his undergrad, decides he wants to be a counselor because he wants to help other people the way he was helped. Becomes a counselor, gets it back into the master's program, and is now at the University of Arkansas, just down the road, getting his master's degree. Just got his master's degree in health and human performance, and is going to become essentially like a coach, and our intention is to bring him on our team and put him to work. So it's a real full circle story of resiliency, and we helped him get his benefits back by writing a letter to the president, and so maybe it's the Secretary of the Navy, I can't remember, but anyway, so that's a really great full circle story. You and I got connected by a really interesting story as well, and I'll hold his name because I don't want to reveal. He probably would say it, but so I was on Instagram, and there's a young Ranger who doesn't have a huge following, but somehow I ended up following him. And he posts a lot of stuff that I really thought was thoughtful. And so I messaged him one day and I said, hey, I really love your content. You should come through our program. And I was talking to him while he was still at regiment. He was going to come to our class in, I think it was November. I got a call from him, or I got a message from him that said, hey man, I'm really sorry I can't come to the class. I just found out that my brother committed suicide. And you'd think as much work as I do in this space, it wouldn't bother me, but every time I talk about this stuff, it really crushes me. Yeah. So I get this message. His brother had taken his first command. His brother was a West Point kid who was recruited on a soccer program. They grew up together playing soccer, very, very close to each other. And he struggled, what I think a lot of that struggle with. And I think the pressure of his command and all the things that he was dealing with, I don't know the whole story, but ultimately decided that death was a better route. And so, this young man who I had been talking to about coming to the program, for the exact reason I created this program, he finds himself with his brother, having committed suicide. And so I stayed in touch with him. I actually, one of our counselors, so we have a graduate support network as well. One of our graduate support coaches, our leaders, has been through grief recovery program. And so I immediately put him into contact with Johnny, and Johnny spent a lot of time with him, helping him process the grief of his loss of his brother. And then this young ranger ended up coming back through the camp in January, the first one, and has now transitioned and is thriving, using health and fitness as a platform to do that. And he is the one who recommended I speak with you.
Hell yeah, love that story. Really do.
Yeah.
Every bit of it, of just the power of the veteran community, of just like recognizing someone else doing something good, and then saying, hey, I'm this other guy that I'm liking what he's doing. Let me connect these guys and make it happen.
Yeah.
Every bit of that is just nothing but goodness to me, man.
Thank you. It's pretty, it's fucking awesome. I don't know how to say it other than that. It's just really awesome to be doing this stuff, because it's just, so such good, powerful stuff.
And I know if you're just listening to this right now, I think Matt and I have both been like kind of wiping out tears for the last minute. So we've been getting emotional here at middle of the day on Friday right now. But that's exactly why I wanted to do this show. Well, Matt, this has been awesome, man. Absolutely super pumped to stay abreast, to stay in contact with you. You're an awesome guy doing really great things for our community. I greatly appreciate that. So in a minute, I'm going to pass it back over to you, just providing last thoughts, parting shots you want to give out to the crowd. Before we go, it's a question I always ask my guests, and that's, if you think back to your time in the Army, what was the best and or worst chow hall you ever ate
at? Well, I was never in the special operations community, unfortunately, because I think I would have really loved it. But I had the pleasure of eating in, I think I was at Fort Bragg. I can't remember if it was, I don't remember his regiment. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they have good food over there. And the worst by far was at Fort Sill. Fort Sill is like the shittiest food on the planet. I'm sorry, Fort Sill, but you guys need to fix your shit.
The Swick Chow Hall at Fort Bragg it's exceptional. It really is. It's phenomenal. I would go there occasionally and eat. I would actually see one of my neighbors who was this guy was probably like a Vietnam vet. I mean, he was like in his 80s or 90s, and he and his wife would come in just to go to that chow hall because it was that good. Soft World definitely gets some good food. Sorry, everybody else. Sorry about it. Well, Matt, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, giving your time to the audience. Amazing story. Where can people find out more about University Health Performance and FitOps?
Yep. So if you'd like to go to the university, or send somebody else, or recommend somebody who goes, the website is www.university-hp.com. So university-hp.com. And then the FitOps Foundation provides scholarships to go to the school. So if somebody doesn't have the ability to come, whether through paying for it or benefits, we have a foundation. John Cena is a massive contributor to that, as are a lot of companies that have become aware of our mission. So you first apply at university, and then the university will reach over to FitOps and get a scholarship for someone if they need to come on a scholarship. We're also on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and all those really fun social media spots. You can find me under MATT_HESSE. We, as I said, have a huge graduate support network, and there's a lot of students out there that have been through our program that are in the fitness world, and if whether you're passionate about becoming a coach or not, if you're transitioning and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do and what your purpose is, you don't have to be a personal trainer to come to our program. You have to be interested in finding great purpose and pursuing it. That's the criteria. We take everybody except Coast Guards. So I'm just kidding, Coast Guard can come. We take everybody. So if you've served and you're interested in pursuing a career in that path, or a career of any kind, and trying to make sure that you have a platform to get after it, come see us, and we'll be happy to help you out.
Awesome. All right. Before you officially close out, parting shots. What's your last bit of wisdom that you like to impart upon the crowd as they're thinking about post-military life here?
Oh man, that's a big question. That should have been in the pre-question list. I believe that transition is challenging, and at the sort of bottom, you can look at the bottom or the peak, whatever you want to look at it as. where you struggle the most, and when you're having the most challenges in your life, that's your opportunity to strike. And so if you're going through a transition and you're trying to figure out who you are and where you're going and why you are the way you are, I really believe that it is the most opportune time you're going to have in your life. And the hardest times, when you look back, there's always a really big lesson in why you were having a hard time. And sometimes you can't see what you need to see unless you go through that hard stuff. So if you're going through hard stuff, keep the faith, keep plowing ahead, because I truly believe that people that are resilient enough to push through it will find themselves thriving on the other side of it. And so whether you want to go that alone or come see us and have us help you do it, stay the course and lead your life with purpose, continue to serve, because that's what we're all made to do.
Awesome. Matt, thank you again for coming on the show. Awesome conversation. Looking forward to staying in touch. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. All right.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
For sure.